Hello everybody, welcome to the top 5 tips of the month. This is a normal series that I do each and every month, just kind of highlighting some like 5 top tips that either I've mentioned, not mentioned, or kind of bringing everything together. The first tip is riffs. Now, let's face it, whether you like it or not, sadly Kabam aren't changing it, so unfortunately we've just got to get on and do it. I'm undecided on whether or not I like it or dislike it. I do like riffs. Maybe there's a few things you could say about like not having a chronometer or something where you get to choose a path that you go on. But sadly, it is what it is and we have to get on with it. But one of my top tips around this is always bring a 6-star champion with you, especially if you're doing legendary difficulty. And the same thing when it comes to the lower difficulties as well. If you've got champions that have a gating system, then make sure you are bringing that starage rarity in, whether it's a 5-star, 4-star, just in case that 1% chance you're going to land on it and on the spicy things and find you do not have the rating champion in order to go through it, which will lose you out on candies, which can be really frustrating. So always make sure to pack in your team one of those particular champions. My second top tip is all about preparation for Incursions. Incursions returns back on October the 13th, and with it returning back, it will mean that you will need to create a team around this, which is going to be very important. Also, it's going to be important for your artifacts. If you're like myself holding out on some incursion artifacts, keep them, because we don't know what the new store is going to look like. It's important to you're keeping them for the future and look at maybe more spicy ones, especially as Kabam confirmed that you will have the opportunity to get 6-star dark artifact crystals, that incursion artifacts crystals, which are going to have a smaller pool for very rare champions, and this can be a really good opportunity for players to get some of these champions, as well as figuring out a good team. Whether or not you're looking at your team like wondering what to do, look at champions at the moment that have buffs, generate a lot of buffs, have a lot of survivability, because that's another key aspect as well with incursions, rather than spending on the health potions and potential revives, but mainly the kind of like the hacks right at the end where you're able to kind of have either refresh your team. You can save the time and get some of those spicy little hacks for yourself, those boss hacks, based on having champion survivability. If you're an amazing player, you're an amazing player. Great, thumbs up, good for you. But survivability champions that have high regen can be really helpful. Even champions like Guillotine 2099 that has a little spike of regeneration can be helpful. Hulkbuster Awaken can have a huge amount of regeneration as well. And also, we've got other champions that can do stuff, like my man King Groot, which has huge survivability. Same thing with an Awakened Apocalypse, same thing with a lot of champions as well. Look to these particular things and create teams. Think about creating your team for these incursions. Have a tester next week when it goes live and then create a team around it after, or have a look as to how other people are with streams and stuff like that before making a jump into the particular content. But it's good to see that it's coming back next week. Tip number 3 is all about spots. As a lot of you know, when you go to your objectives, there's going to be something you need to do, a target you need to defeat in order to get yourself a spot, which will then gain you entry into the side quest and the dimensional rifts for this particular month. Now, there are many places you can go in order to grab these on a daily basis. I would say it's good to get involved with community-based stuff. I definitely know that Mr. King is following this, so follow Mr. King over on Twitter. Link is in the description. Also, there is a thread on the forums which has a kind of following thread of characters that will be the ones you can target. And the final thing is I will be regularly updating, so as I did say with this one, I'm going to be regularly updating the champions and targets. This is a spreadsheet I created. It's a pack for the month. As you can see at the bottom, it's got very different tabs. It's got one about how the side quest works, it's got one how to choose the objectives and events, it has got store spend and kind of like also spend scenarios, so it gives you ideas of how best to spend your candies, but that's another thing for another tip. And that other tip is now, of course it is, let's face it, you get candies whether or not we like candies or we do not like the candies kind of situation. It is a case that you are not guaranteed to get 100% of all the candies for the month. There is a slight chance you will get less than the candies for your month. So if you're a Cavalier and upwards player, you get 700,000 candies. If you go through the dimensional rifts and you go right through to the end for 35 of your runs and get yourself candies each time, 20k candies a piece each time you go in. Now, there is a small % chance you will not. So you need to be very careful about what's going to happen with your spend towards the latter point. People can spend like as they choose, but what I've done is I put a perspective together. If you are willing to hoard your candies for the month, then you can spend them in such a way that will give you an opportunity for things. And the spreadsheet that I have put out does have some formula to it. So when you say, when you kind of like, what you can do is you can put the limits. If you're not going for the full limits of some of the suggestions, like, you know, there where it says, you know, 7 limit, I've done, if you do that, press 7, it will then do a calculation down and it will change the final total down there. Some of the other stuff isn't formulated, but still it gives you a perspective of, you don't have to, if you miss out, say you, I don't know, for whatever reason you get lucky about 3 or 4 times through the month, which loses you 80,000 candies, then you at least can put that into perspective of how you want to spend differently when it comes to the end result. I mean, some people care, some people don't. I care because I'm like, I want to spend my candies in a certain way. And funny enough, the spend of the candies I'm doing is getting Cavalier Crystals, which does hopefully benchmark my loss of 1,500 6-star shards and gets me more as a result. I did a full video on this one, which was out on Thursday. But yeah, this is the kind of the tip. It's all about candies, in that you can benchmark your spend in certain ways that can either benefit things like rank stuff, or it can go in a different direction. It is a case of, it's a player perspective. I'm not saying you have to do it in the way that I'm saying it. Do it how you see fit, but I'm just giving everybody perspective of ideas. And yes, candies, the spending of them, the acquisition of them, it's all but fun. I say that in a very sarcastic way. Some people, it's very stressful. And the final tip is all about Cyber Weekend. Yes, each and every month I do make this a priority because I'm non-spending and I do want to get myself a good chunk of units. I have to put in perspective, where am I getting my units from? And what we try to do here on the channel is give a perspective of, look, you can get it by non-arena and arena-based means, the same way I do things about gold acquisition. More on that next week in a specific video if things go really well. But in any case, it is 25th of November when the Cyber Weekend should start. That is just based on, if you do a Google search, it says Black Friday is on the 25th. I think that's right. Pretty certain that's right this year. 40 days until Cyber Weekend, which is also 5 weeks, 5 days until Cyber Weekend. This is important because it's all about acquisition of units. And what does the acquisition look like, Richard? Well, if you base on this month and next month, which is October, so we've just started really. So if you go through October and November, and by the 25th of November, you have yourself the normal, heroic, mass, and uncollected bashed out. That gives you a good chunk of units, 1,200 to be exact. Calendar for 2 months worth gives you 200 units. And then we've got solo events. If you do all the solo events between today and the Cyber Weekend, then that's 1,000 units. Alliance 3-day events, 325 if you're an Alliance and all that stuff, based on, I think, 13 3-day events. Summon a Sigil, for those that buy it, gives you a perspective as well for the 5 weeks coming. And that is that non-spenders will have 2,725 units from all those particular means, and also spenders will have 3,100. If you're yet to receive the Summoner Camp, you'll get an extra 300 units, and any fabulous crystals, for whatever reason that we get them, could give you an extra 100, so an extra 400 units there. So that was your non-arena. This is your arena kind of like breakdown of units. If you do up to milestone 12, as I said, like we've broken this down before, but if you do a low-end grind, medium grind, high-end grind, and kind of a low grind, 1,896 units, just based on very little kind of grind in arena. Medium grind, we're talking about a few different types of arenas, over 12 rotations of the arenas between now and Cyber Weekend, 3,876. There may be a few more, there may be like a couple, no, one more. There will be one more arena in that, so maybe this is 13. It just depends, again, personal preference and how you want to look at this, but I'm sticking with 12 for the time being. Let's just go with 12. 5,856 units for our more high-end grind, giving us some final totals, which are on screen right now. If you're doing no arena whatsoever, then 3,125 units could be yours just by doing those particular things. If you're willing to do a little bit of arena, just a little bit, you could get upwards of 6,021 units, and that includes a little bit of RNG with arena crystals. You could get more, you could get less. I've seen horror stories, I've seen joyous stories. And then a high end could be nearly close to 10,000 extra units between now and Cyber Weekend. So that gives you an idea of perspective. I'm hoping to have myself around the kind of low end area of 6,021. I want more units than that, but we'll see. Like we'll see. I'd love more than that, but in order to get that, you got to put in the work, and I've got to find some time to put in the work. I really do. So there we go. That has been my top 5 tips of the month of October. I wish you luck as well in the grind, as well as I do myself. It has been a very crazy week. Hopefully we're going to get a podcast out later on today as well, which may be a live podcast. I'm trying to work on some stuff, but me and Dan have had a very hectic time at the moment. Yeah, fingers crossed for that one. Lots of stuff I've got to get done this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that as well. But yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. Check out some other content which is located on screen right now, and thanks for the support this week. It's been a hectic week, but I'm really kind of enjoying being back, being healthy, being fit, and yeah, getting back to it. Cheers everybody, have a good one, bye bye.